At long await, I know you guys always want it on YouTube. Here is the Cowboys Report mailbag. I'm sorry we didn't do it earlier for you guys, but NBA free agency got in the way. First up, Sean Oliver. Why the Cowboys ain't pulled the trigger on Earl Thomas yet? Well, there's a lot of different things here going on with Earl Thomas. Number one, I still think Seattle is hesitant to move Earl Thomas for a deal that doesn't meet their massive asking price. And frankly, for me, that makes sense right now. And then beyond that, Seattle can still work out an extension with Earl Thomas. That's not necessarily a done deal right now, that he's going to be gone no matter what. So I'm not ruling out the potentiality of a return for Earl Thomas if you're the Seahawks, but that's partially why there hasn't been any trade yet. And frankly, I think training camp, once that starts, if ET is still holding out, that's when you could see a deal go a little bit quicker on that end. No surprise, folks, there were a lot of Earl Thomas questions this week, so we'll go through these here. Rick says, it's heating up with Earl Thomas. Does he stay after now that Kam Chancellor is gone in Seattle? He thinks no way. I don't know how much of an impact it is. I think the overarching thing here is that the big thing for Earl Thomas is that, yes, he's gone, or yes, that Chancellor's gone, but as long as Seattle is winning, and if they pay him, that's what Earl Thomas wants the most. Yeah, he wants to win games, and yeah, he's going to miss his buddy Chancellor back there, but Earl Thomas's number one priority is to get himself paid just in case he suffers a similar injury that Kam Chancellor suffered. So that's the takeaway with Chancellor's retirement, but not really retirement, but I think you guys know what's going on there by now. Jordan says, it's looking more likely that Earl Thomas will indeed be the Cowboy. I'm not there yet, Jordan. I still think that it's not a set-in-stone situation. I think that both parties have to come closer to get a deal done. I'm not assuming it's going to happen. I still think it's a one-star for a trade if you want to use that scale. I think there's a chance of it happening, but I think Seattle still wants to try to work out something with Earl Thomas to get that deal done. So, folks, let me know what you guys would trade for Earl Thomas. And I bring up this weigh-in because we have one from Nicholas McLean for today who says trade T-Will for Thomas. I'd do it in a heartbeat, but Seattle would say absolutely no. So, again, Seattle wants value, at least a third-round pick, or at least something that can be combined into the value of a third-round pick. T-Will ain't going to get that done. Jeff asked, I think that this is a good question/comment here, is it worth the risk? The win-now mentality says yes, but the Cowboys do have a young roster overall. Do they have to push it right now? And that's a really good point. I think that's why you saw Dallas, for example, not trade away a second-round selection in order to get Earl Thomas in the draft because they wanted Connor Williams. So, and not only that, Thomas is going to be a free agent next year. So that's something you do have to consider. Maybe you can pull a Lakers, for example, if you want to stick with the NBA theme. Just wait to get Kawhi Leonard. Just wait to get Earl Thomas, and don't give up an asset. I am open to it. I love draft picks. I value those a lot, but it is Earl Thomas. Every safety on the Cowboys roster, everyone that they could draft this year, next year, or beyond, you are hoping to get an Earl Thomas type player. If you can do it for a third and a player, I do it in a heartbeat. Maybe a second, but I'm a little bit cautious there because we don't know how high it's going to be. So let us know in the comment section, folks, if you want Dallas to trade for Earl Thomas. Chris on Twitter says, if the Cowboys making any moves at DT or wide receiver. We'll start with DT, and I hope so, because you can take a look at this depth chart. It's not good enough at defensive tackle. It's actually pretty mediocre here. David Irving suspended. Collins is hurt. I like Jihad Ward. I like Dayton Jones. I like Brian Price at times. I need a nose guard. Go out and sign a Hankins if you want that. Go out and get somebody who's going to get cut before the rosters. Find somebody at defensive tackle who can help stop the run. Brian Price, Ward's kind of more of a three technique for me. Price, Ash, Woods, Daniel Ross, all these guys, I think they are three techniques or just not good enough at stopping the run if you're Ash or a Price. I need one of those guys if I'm the Cowboys. As for wide receiver, I don't think so. Hearns, Beasley, Gallup, T-Will, Thompson, Wilson, Brown, Lenore. I know there are some Katie Cannon fans out there. Tavon Austin. That's 10 guys already. Now, maybe the Cowboys trade one away and they're definitely going to have to cut some people, but I'd be very surprised if you saw the Cowboys make a big move at wide receiver, because if it is, it has to be a big move because it doesn't make sense to bring in a lesser body. You have enough 3s and 4s at wide receiver. You need a number 1 or a number 2. Next up is a question about if the Cowboys could cut Tyrone Crawford and a cheaper option. Well, first off, I don't agree that Crawford's ineffective. I know the stat sheet says he doesn't put up great numbers, and he doesn't. But Tyrone Crawford provides 2 essential things for Dallas: leadership and that dirty work. Crawford is actually very good against the run, even at defensive end. That's a big thing for the Cowboys. His hurry stats were fine as well. Now, there is a scenario, I think, in which it happens. Number one, Taco looks great. Dorrance Armstrong looks great. Coney Ely emerges. Charles Tapper stays healthy and looks great. And Gregory comes back from suspension. If that's the scenario, maybe Dallas considers it. But I think in the end, you'll see the Cowboys pick option number one, and they'll keep Tyrone Crawford because they like him a lot. They love a lot of the things that he does for the roster. It's not always the sexiest things, but the stuff that Crawford does for the Cowboys is underrated and still very important. All right, folks, once again, I am Tom Downey. Go follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. We're trying to get me to 4,500 followers. We're right almost there. 4,259 was the number before we went live with today's show. Hit me up on Twitter. Any Cowboys questions you got, let me know, and I'll be sure to respond to you guys. Keep it rolling now with some more questions. Sandman says, hey, what's up with this Sunday mailbag? Not always going to be on Sunday. We'll adjust it throughout the year, depending on what makes the most sense. He goes into LeBron about him being a tight end. Look, I wouldn't mind it. It'd be fun, but I don't think it's exactly a likely one. But hypothetically, if LeBron focused on football from the very beginning, I think he'd be one of the best receiving players in the NFL, be it tight end or wide receiver. He was great at Ohio. He's 6'8", 250, can move well, and we know he can catch. So sign me up there. I think in reality, LeBron James would be what everyone wants Rico Gathers to be, only a more athletic version and a more productive version. All right, Bray wants to know, who do you think plays in the slot the most this year for the Cowboys? I think it's pretty obvious. It's going to be Cole Beasley. Now, Cole will play outside and inside this year. He won't just be limited to the inside like he has been for the most part in the past, but Beasley will play at least 50% of his snaps in the slot. I'd be stunned if he didn't. Hearns and Gallipanos will play there too, Tavon as well, but Beasley is going to be your main slot receiver. Another one here from Bray, big fan of the show, says, who do you think gets the most snaps, Jihad Ward or Tavon Austin? Great question. I don't have a great answer for you. I want to see how training camp goes because Ward's going to play plenty at DT, but when Irving and Collins are both back, does he still start? And for Tavon, how many snaps does he actually get on offense? He'll get a lot on special teams, but will it be enough to surpass Jihad Ward? So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I'll go with Tavon because I think he'll be key on special teams, and I think the Cowboys want to get him involved as much as possible. Jihad gets the most in the first month, but then gets dialed back just a little bit. Also from Bray, who has a better chance of getting signed by the Cowboys, Peterson or Bowman? Well, I think neither, but of the more likely, I don't think it's Adrian Peterson. Look, the Cowboys don't need a halfback who can help on third downs and can help on special teams. Unless Zeke gets hurt, Peterson doesn't have a role on the Cowboys, despite being, well, Adrian Peterson, though he's not quite the same guy he used to be there either. And as for Bowman, if Sean Lee gets hurt, sure. But the Cowboys drafted 2 linebackers. They signed Joe Thomas. I know that depth is always something you need more of, but why would Bowman come to Dallas? Why would he want to come to Dallas to be the number 4 linebacker? He can get more snaps somewhere else. All right, folks, let me know who you guys would rather sign. Give me a 1 for Peterson and a 2 for Bowman. And don't forget, subscribe to our new Cowboys Report YouTube channel. We know most of you guys watch the Main Chat Sports one, but this one has all of our Cowboys coverage and only Cowboys coverage. Almost to 1,000. Hit that subscribe button now. Go to chatsports.com/CowboysTV. It'll take you right in the subscribe button page. All right, back to the mailbag. Bray again. What are the chances the Cowboys have a reunion with DeMarco Murray? I don't really see it happening. I know that DeMarco had a great run here in Dallas, but he's 30, coming off his worst year ever. And the Cowboys, frankly, they don't really need another running back. Rod Smith, Bo Scarborough, Tavon Austin, even Darius Jackson too. That's enough. DeMarco's not going to get many touches. Zeke's going to be the focal point. Now, if Zeke gets hurt, we can revisit DeMarco and AD, but I don't foresee it happening. Next up, what about trading for Obi Melifonwu? This one was in a kind of a response to the trade segment I did last time. I considered Obi. The issue is he's a second-round pick from last year. I just don't think Oakland's going to give up on him already. And if they were going to move him, it'd be for at least a second or a third-round pick. That's not what his value is right now because he's been banged up and hasn't looked all that good in the preseason, or at least in training camp and OTAs at times. So I like the player, but I don't think it makes sense for Dallas at this time. Come back to me in a year or two, and then we'll revisit the possibility of a trade here. Sandman, who I always love for his witty comments there, asks who is the bigger knucklehead, David Irving or T. Will? Take your pick. I'm actually going to go with T. Will, just from a humanity perspective. If you're David Irving and you're going to get in trouble for marijuana, like, okay, it is marijuana. T. Will, come on, man, don't drive drunk. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. He crashed his car because he was drunk driving. Now, the charge wasn't for that, but read between the lines. So I'm going with T. Will there. I really don't appreciate what he did whatsoever. Jordan chimes in, who would be a season-changing player if injured besides Zeke, Tyron, or Dak? I got 4 names that jumped out to me instantly. Sean Lee, we know how bad that team is without him on the field on defense. DeMarcus Lawrence, pass rushers matter. You got to keep him on the field. And then 2 guys the Cowboys have been lucky enough to not have to deal with injuries. Zach Martin, Travis Frederick. If Travis Frederick got hurt, by the way, folks, I think it'd be a massive blow to Dallas on the same level that Tyron was. Look, the Cowboys have Cam this year, Cam Fleming at tackle. Their backup center is Joe Looney or Marcus Martin. That would not go well. Back to Jordan. He says he has good seats at the Cowboys-Seahawks game. Wants to know if he's going to see a win. Jordan, I think you'll see the Cowboys win that game. Yeah, it's a road game, but I like Dallas against the Seahawks team that, frankly, I think is rebuilding. All right, folks, you are watching the Cowboys Report presented by The Guild. Go to stayguild.com, promo code CHATSPORTS for 15% off your next stay at the luxury Airbnb, more or less. All right, Sandman, special teams players for the Cowboys who could be Pro Bowlers. Well, all 4 guys, I think, potentially could be among the top of their positions. Maybe Dan Bailey if he bounces back to form, but it's special teams. You know, it's a good group for the Cowboys, but the Pro Bowls I don't think matter too much to those guys. They just want to win games and stay healthy and do a good job. One last one from God Cypher Divine says, if the Cowboys miss the playoffs and it's not due to injury, who will most likely replace Jason Garrett? He likes Sean Payton. I do too. It's a bit of a long shot because Saints probably won't let him leave. I got 5 more guys, though. John DeFilippo, John Harbaugh, Matt LaFleur, Chris Richard, and Lincoln Riley. Those are just 5 names to monitor. DeFilippo, I love him. I'm a big fan of him. I want to see how Matt LaFleur does this year with Tennessee and Mariota. I like John Harbaugh if he gets fired. I know a lot of you guys like Chris Richard. And the NFL, by the way, is rather high on Lincoln Riley. So just keep an eye out for him potentially going forward. In the meantime, let me know if Garrett does get fired, who you want as the next Cowboys head coach. I'll be sure to respond in the comment section. All right, folks, that does it for us today. If you guys missed anything, don't worry. We'll play it again here in just a second on loop. But until then, we'll see you next time.